fii si Jamono Media and Products tey nag ki nga xamante ne mooy Excellency président Adama Barrow moo ñëw fii nga xamante ne mooy National Assembly bi fii di Banjul di joxe nag lii nga xamante ne moo nekk First Nation address am fii si National Assembly bi léegi ni ñuy def rek comme que nit yi nga xamante ne ñoo nekk Gambian si ñoo gën a mun a wax like seen expectations léegi ni ñoo def rek dañoo daal di waxtaan ak ñi nga xamante ne moom nañ am fii nii pour xool lan mooy si seen gis-gis si li nga xamante ne moom la président bi adresse tey fii nii ci National Assembly bi léegi ni ñoo def rek ñoo daal di dem waxtaan ak ñoom seet lan la ngay am pour wax. nañ ko def rek président bi mu ngi si biir right now session bi nag dooraangut wante léegi tey mu door waaye ñu ne il faut ñu lacce nit yi tamit lan mooy si seen xalaati tey bi ak lan la gaay nekk di expect ki nga xamante ne mooy président bi mu adresse ko tey nu maa def rek tey dama daal di waxtaan nag système bi maa def
jaama rek tur bi Kadi Sagnang Lady Councillor All Yundum constituency.
lan moo la fi indi tey
tey kay moom suñu réew mi moo ñu indi fii parce que gis nañ ne pour ubbi néegi député bi boobu wargar la pour doomi Gambien yëpp ñu gis seen boppa ci bi parce que lii moom suñu néegi député bi Gambien yi ñoo ko moom ñun ñoo ko moom moo tax nag ñu war ñu ñëw ñu ak fekk ji programme bi tey.
léegi lan nga foog ne tey la président te lan nga foog ne président bi tey moom la moo adresse.
président bi de xam naa ne tey lépp lu mooy adresse bi dafay nekk jàmm si réew mi parce que Gambia ni xamuñ dara Gambia jàmm rek lañ xam te du lu mooy wax tey xam naa ne jàmm rek la mooy nekk waaw loolu ñu koy expect si moom.
léegi yow si lan nga nekk di séentu mu gën koo wax comme si yan issues nga bugg mu gën a wax tey.
xam naa ne issues bu mooy wax number one dina nekk affaire yi dunda bi parce que nit yi ñu ngi wax affaire yi dunda bi réew mi dafa naxari dunda bi dina si wax dara loo xam ne doomi dem Gambia ni dinañ gis dinañ xam si lu mu nekk si affaire yi dunda bi te du si crime rate bi tamit xam naa ne dina wax si tamit pour peace moom ñu mun a maintain peace si Gambia ñu amante jàmm ñu bugante loolu kam moo xam naa ne boobu expect naa ko ci moom waaw.
Alright, jërëjëf.
Thank you.
The event is a mandatory provision of the Constitution, and it creates the necessary. The event is a mandatory provision of the Constitution, and it creates the necessary atmosphere to hold an annual interface between the executive and the legislature. As this is my first formal engagement with this august body, I will begin by congratulating the honorable members of this session. Once again, congratulations to all of you. I pray that we ably discharge our duties and responsibilities with honor and glory for the nation. Mr. Speaker, very complex and challenging circumstances inform my address this morning. It portrays the experience of a transformed nation, a nation of peace-loving people who stood up to dictatorship in a peaceful manner, embraced democracy, and embarked upon reconciliation and national development. These achievements came about through the political context that gave rise to the 2016 coalition and the sense of national unity and commitment which brought about the alliances leading to the last presidential and legislative elections. Alongside these developments were the hostile global context and the numerous internal challenges that characterize the country's 5-year transition period, 2017 to 2022. The emergence of COVID-19 pandemic, with its dreadful consequences globally, worsened the country's economic situation. Furthermore, in a twist of fortune, what appeared to be a relief and hope for a new dawn of recovery is dampened by the Russia-Ukraine war. The address highlights my administration's performance, derived from the performance of our formal national institutions. It is a sector-specific based on major public programs and projects. Legislative issues relevant to the functions of this assembly, matters of national significance, and proposed interventions. Because it focuses on the institutional arrangements of the last legislative year, I will mention the new ministries briefly. For region of constraint, the added 5% in 2021. Although the growth remained below the pre-pandemic levels, it was still significant. However, the slowdown of business activities in 2020 and the third wave of the virus in July 2021 affected the economy's recovery. In 2022, the economy could have been well into recovery, with expectations of improved economic performance, increased grant inflows, and private remittances. Unfortunately, it took a different trend as economies across the globe grapple with the impact of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. Consequently, in June, the government projected a more modest growth of 3.6% in 2021. Prompted by this development, the government resolved to formulate robust policies that would set up buffers against shocks and enhance domestic revenue mobilization. Withstanding the challenges, the fourth review of the extended credit facility with the IMF was successfully completed in December 2021. We remain committed to sound economic policy management detailed in the medium-term economic fiscal framework 2022-2026. The framework is to improve macro-fiscal stability. With the support of the United Nations Development Programme, the initial stages of the formulation of a recovery-focused National Development Plan, RFNDP, 2023-2027, and a long-term development vision, LTDV 2050, have started. The RFNDP will succeed the National Development Plan 2018-2021, and the LTDV will succeed Vision 20 for the country's long-term development targets and transformation. The Gambia was among 44 countries that presented their voluntary national reviews, VNRs, on the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals during the high-level political forum held in New York in July 2022. The reviews facilitate the sharing of experiences. Partners commended the Gambia for the inclusive and participatory nature of its VNR and the policies and strategies being implemented to accelerate the implementation of the 2030 agenda. The Gambia's total debt service payment in 2021 was $5.01 billion. Of this, $1.9 billion was external debt service payment, and $3.1 billion was domestic debt service payment. The debt service payment increased by 11.1%, from $4.5 billion in 2020 to $5 billion in 2021. There was no debt service suspension initiative received compared to the preceding year. As update on the Public Finance Management, PFM, the PFM Act is under revision to address the weaknesses. Once finalized, the public finance regulations and institutions will be revised. Our public finance management reforms include a treasury single account to ensure better treasury management functions. Also initiated is a public financial management strategy 2021-2025 to address weaknesses in the financial management of local government authorities and ensure effective use of the IFMIS. To conclude, Cabinet have approved the Public-Private Partnership PPP bill for tabling by this August Assembly. It speaks to the revised national PPP policy and operational guidelines. Foreign affairs, international cooperations, and Gambians abroad. Honorable Speaker, during the last 5 years, the country's diplomacy registered many successes, resulting in visits to the Gambia by various foreign dignitaries and scaling up of bilateral relations with different countries around the world. Our partnerships at the multilateral level have generated support for many projects in diverse areas of development. Furthermore, the Foreign Service contributed significantly to mobilizing support to complement the country's COVID response when it mattered. The international community recognizes our commitment to dialogue and peace. No wonder the United Nations Secretary General's yearly report of the Peace Building Commission singled out the Gambia as a model for preventive diplomacy. Our commitment to building and sustaining peace continues to attract material and financial assistance from the Secretary General's Peace Building Fund and other international partners. We maintain fruitful strategic relations with ECOWAS member states and actively engage and support mediation processes under the auspices of the African Union and ECOWAS. Within ECOWAS, the Gambia now holds the position of President of the ECOWAS Commission with effect from June 2022. For the first time in our history, the Gambia has a seat on the United Nations Human Rights Council for a 3-year term effective from January 2022. At the level of the African Union, the Gambia also received overwhelming votes to sit on the Peace and Security Council. Mr. Speaker, as of January 2022, remittances stood at $777 million, representing about 40% of GDP. The plight and role of Gambians in the diaspora in national development therefore remain high on my government's agenda. We will continue to engage with them meaningfully and remain active in global discussions to address migration concerns. Finally, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is reformulating its strategic plan, scheme of service, and posting policy. Also underway is the drafting of a foreign service bill and regulation to uphold excellence and efficiency within the sector. Agriculture, Honorable Speaker. Last year, the agriculture sector registered increases above national average in the production levels of crops, such as paddy, maize, millet, groundnut, and sesame. The production of key commodities like vegetables, fruits, milk, and eggs also increased. As a result, per capita availability of these food items has increased, even though both population and demand increased. Due to increased support from FAO and WFP, commercial poultry farming increased by about 40% in 2021. At present, the Ministry of Agriculture is implementing 8 major projects with a total portfolio of about $294.13 million mobilized through partner support. These projects are jointly funded by government and partners, such as the Food and Agriculture Organization, the World Food Programme, the African Development Bank, and Islamic Development Bank. The projects are outlined in the report. To boost the incomes of farming households, the government has in the past 5 years invested heavily to modernize and transform agriculture sector. As a result, through donor-funded projects, the sector was able to reach 300 communities, those opening 6,000 hectares for rice cultivation, 400 hectares vegetable production, and more than 100 poultry schemes to boost the availability of poultry meat and locally produced eggs. These investments and their results have laid a solid foundation for the sector's investment plan. Government plans to create a fund that will carry about 70% guarantee to the financial institutions for credit financing of agricultural investments by either individuals or SMEs. Hopefully, this will induce the needed capital to transform and modernize agriculture in the country. Environment, Honorable Speaker. Regardless of the country's low contribution to global emission, it has taken a lead role in climate action through our revised nationally determined contribution to Paris Agreement, where we committed ourselves with international support to reducing emission by 49.7% by 2030. The international community recognizes the Gambia as the only country on track to achieving the Paris Agreement temperature goal of 1.5 degrees centigrade by 2050. Notwithstanding this, the Gambia is vulnerable to the negative impact of climate change, as shown by the frequency of windstorms and floods. To mitigate this, the government developed relevant policy documents and implemented adaptation and resilience building project amounting to $36 million in the past 5 years. Closely related to climate change are issues around the misuse of chemicals and hazardous materials. In this respect, the National Environment Agency has formulated a bill on pesticide and chemical management for submission to the National Assembly after finalization. For proper management and use of the coastal and marine resources in the country, the government will enforce the Integrated Coastal Zone Management Bill after its enactment. To conclude, I commend the sector for their efforts to rehabilitate the degraded mangrove and forest cover in the country. We applaud them also for the increase in the non-timber products, such as honey, handicrafts, fruits, and nuts. Health, Honorable Speaker. Over the last 5 years, my government successfully expanded and developed healthcare services to improve infrastructure, personnel, and supplies on a reformed health financing landscape. A major achievement of my administration is the introduction of the Gambia National Health Insurance Scheme. The act to establish the scheme became effective in November 2021 to particularly benefit the poor and the vulnerable, while serving as a social safety net. Key health indicators have improved notably. For example, maternal and child mortality has declined. Skilled birth attendance, postnatal care, and nutrition have improved considerably. On training, the Gambia now offers postgraduate training at the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. In addition, the UTG offers health-related programs at bachelor's level. Government introduction of community ambulance service following the distribution of 80 new ambulances in areas without health facilities is widely applauded in the country. We will see how it evolves as the new National Health Policy 2021-2030 and the National Health Strategic Plan 2021-2025 guide the sector's activities. There is a wide range of construction works in progress to expand services throughout the country. Ongoing, for example, is the construction of a National Emergency Treatment Center, National Laboratory Center, and Blood Transfusion Center in Farata. Development of the Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Bill 2022 is ongoing for submission to the National Assembly when finalized. It is meant to create universal access to health services. Basic and secondary education, Honorable Speaker. The basic and secondary education sector remains committed to providing result-oriented programs to improve access and quality education and to remove inequities in education service delivery. As such, the sector will conduct a mid-term review of the 2016-2030 education sector policy, jointly prepared by the Ministries of Basic and Secondary Education and Higher Education, Research, Science, and Technology. The country continues to register impressive progress at all levels of the education sector, and it is pleasing that female students now have higher gross enrollment and net enrollment rates at all levels, from ECD and lower basic to the upper basic and senior secondary school levels. To meet the increasing demand for education, the number of schools increased correspondingly by 102 between 2020 to 2021. With partner support, government built 2,597 new classrooms and 3,116 toilet cubicles during the last 5 years. Additional 498 classrooms and 456 toilet cubicles are under construction, and 1,076 rooms for teacher accommodation are already in use around the country. There are plans to increase the number to ease accommodation challenges for teachers. Honorable National Assembly members, through the collaboration with the Gambia College and the University of the Gambia, 1,162 more teachers were trained in 2021. During the same period, qualified teachers for the upper basic and senior secondary school levels increased by 480 and 338 respectively. Although enrollment at the secondary and upper levels remained low in 2021, the sector registered substantial improvements on the pass rate for the 2021 Gambia Basic Education Certificate Examination and the West African Senior School Certificate Examination. Similarly, girls' performance at the West African Senior School Certificate Examination was improved slightly. The grade 12 WAS results show that 2,882 female candidates had 5 credits or more in 2020, an increase from 2019 figures of 2,797 female students. Overall performance continues to improve. Finally, to expand opportunities and education access for out-of-school children, enrollment for the Second Chance Education Program has increased, and it now leads from the Gabici to WAS. It strongly indicates that this policy decision has a positive impact on our young people, who would otherwise be left without fewer options to better their lives. We appreciate and will continue to strengthen the partnerships established with our partners, UNICEF, the World Food Programme, the World Bank, Islamic Development Bank, Badia, OFIT, MRC Holland Foundation, the Creative Fund, and also recently with EU stand out among them. We thank them immensely. Higher education, research, science, and technology. Honorable Speaker, the education, research, science, and technology sector going through a transformation phase that would lead to the desired institutional and infrastructural development in the country. In the area of infrastructure, government has completed about 70% of the civil works of the University of the Gambia Youth Faraba Banta Campus project, after inheriting it with less than 1% implementation status. The opening of the Wascal campus made it possible to begin doctoral programs on climate change and adaptive land use in country. Annually, 10 Gambians go to other postgraduate Wascal centers in the sub-region. Alongside program delivery within the sector, the RIPGAM Renewable Energy Project is going to solarize 23 villages and train over 200 Gambian youths in renewable energy management. Honorable Speaker, the GTTI is now the University of Applied Science, Engineering and Technology, and it operates through mentorship programs. About 100 undergraduate students have enrolled as the first and second batch on the electronic, mechanical, civil engineering degree programs. The Gambia will train more students at PhD level to complement academic and administrative staff of the new university. Meanwhile, the foundation stone was laid recently to relocate the institution. At present, about 400 ex-Gambians have awards and are pursuing higher education courses in the country and abroad. Many of them are in the sciences. In the interim, the UTG PhD programs are expanding gradually. The Ministry of Higher Education is equally upgrading the Management Development Institute, MDI, into a degree awarding institution. At present, over 21 students have enrolled on the institution's degree program supported by SOCDE of Senegal. These degree programs will help us to realize the civil service reform objectives and strengthen the workforce. Similarly, the Gambia College Schools of Agriculture, Nursing and Public Health are part of the UTG to offer degree programs. The Gambia College Annex in Basse complement these efforts by training teachers within URR. Because of the need for skills development programs, the Julangel and Mansakonko skill centers will intensify training efforts in this area. Both are fully operational in URR and LRR. To boost this, the revitalized Ndemban and Kanelai skill centers in West Coast region will begin operations soon. With the support of the Korea International Cooperation Agency and UNESCO, the Gambia TVET Policy 2021-2030 is now in operations. Significantly as well, the ministry has validated the country's first ever national research policy to promote research in the country. Incidentally, the Gambia is known for its quality research works, especially in the medical and biological sciences. The policy will strengthen this success. Petroleum and energy, Honorable Speaker. Like other sectors, the COVID pandemic affected petroleum exploration, which the Russia-Ukraine war has worsened. Despite this, FAR and Petronas successfully completed the drilling of Bambo 1 in December 2021. This is an offshore exploration well. We keenly await the results on this endeavor. On energy, a welcome development is the respective commissioning of the ONVG substations in Brikama and Soma last year. Since the inauguration of the Soma substation in October 2021, NAWEC has been receiving power from Senegal through the 225 kV ONVG line. In March 2022, NAWEC signed a 50 megawatt power purchase agreement with Senelec and began receiving 30 megawatt of this capacity in April. In addition to the 20 megawatt solar plant in Jambur, feasibility studies for the 150 megawatt solar park in the Gambia are ongoing. Execution ends in 2025. The NAMA project under UNDP will also provide 10 megawatt solar energy between Farafenni and Basse. Mr. Speaker, works on the electrification to attain the 2025 universal access goal set by my government is in high gear. This program will provide electricity access to 685 villages and modernize the network transmission and distribution systems. Recently, the Gambia signed a $25 million US grant agreement with the Millennium Challenge Corporation of the US, and the National Assembly ratified it for implementation. It will elevate NAWEC's operations and strengthen the governance and regulatory frameworks of the electricity subsector. Honorable members, plans are afoot to solve the water supply bottlenecks through the Indian government-supported project, to which the World Bank and the African Development Bank contribute. Furthermore, my administration has resolved to separate the water business from the electricity business at NAWEC and have them as two independent corporations. This initiative will make a difference in the country. Tourism, Honorable Speaker. The pandemic hit the tourism sector badly, but we expect them to bounce back soon. In 2021, arrivals stood at 102,460, marking an increase of over 14%, and the future looks bright. Since the beginning of the 2021-2022 tourism season, 53 flights arrive per week. Meanwhile, the ministry is exploring various ways of diversifying the sector and is expanding in-country destination activities and products. Turning to the culture subsector, in April of this year, the $90 million project geared to strengthening national and contributing to sustainable development in the Gambia 2020-2024, funded by UNESCO. Gender, children and social welfare, Honorable Speaker. To begin with regulation, government will continue to initiate policies and programs that address the needs and aspirations of the people, especially the vulnerable population, hence the formulation of the Gender Policy 2023-2032. Currently, the Disability Act 2021 is in force and will inform the formulation of a disability policy and program of action 2022-2032. To address emerging issues on child protection, the Children's Act 2005 is also under review to give way to the National Children Policy 2022-2032. Honorable Speaker, gender and women empowerment is a critical enabler of sustained and progressive development. Therefore, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Welfare will table a cabinet paper on a national gender mainstreaming strategy. We will remain steadfast to enhance the capacity of women in small and medium-scale enterprises, SMEs, by scaling up the Women Enterprise Fund. I am happy to state that the fund surpasses the targeted small and medium-scale enterprises from 10,000 to 23,000 enterprises. Government provided the entire $17 million fund. Through the Family Strengthening Program, the Ministry provided $750,000 support to 300 vulnerable families and 150 vulnerable elderly persons. This program assists vulnerable families and persons through cash transfers. Youth and sports. Honorable Speaker, to promote youth and sports development, the Ministry of Youth and Sports is working to reorganize and restructure its satellite institutions by reviewing their acts and policies. The outcome of the regional forums on the review of the National Sports Policy and the National Youth and Sports Act will guide the remaining stages of the process. In the meantime, the National Youth Service Scheme has enrolled 150 young people for apprenticeship and skill acquisition training. An additional 150 passed out and proceeded to other institutions. The next phase is to accelerate the program in the coming fiscal year. During the year under review, the President International Award Skill and Enterprise Training Center graduated 225 youth in 9 different trade areas, but the proposed military national service for young Gambians university graduates is still on hold. In the same vein, a series of training programs has been running in various areas for the youth and women in partnership with NIDI, GIZ, EU, TF, Go for Africa, and other partners. The award program continues to focus on its nationwide expansion to reach all young people across the country. Current participation level stands at 8,765 young persons. Over 689 youth have already completed the mandatory aspect of the programs, mandatory aspects of the program. Mr. Speaker, the Gambia's performance in international competitions is improving rapidly, as demonstrated in the last African Cup of Nations, the Commonwealth Games, and the last Tokyo Athletics competitions. We congratulate our athletes on their impressive results. To strengthen this, construction of mini stadiums is progressing on 8 sites across the country. We are aware of the maintenance works required at the Independence Stadium, and the contracts have been tendered to address the matter. Office of the Vice President. Honorable Speaker, the government formulated a national social protection policy to establish by 2030 an inclusive, integrated, and comprehensive social protection system. It is meant to contribute to broader human development, greater economic productivity, and inclusive growth. The year 2021 was an engaging year for the National Disaster Management Agency, NDMA. The country experienced serious domestic fire outbreaks, windstorms, and flash floods, which continue to affect lives and livelihoods. In response, government supported 1,952 households affected by windstorms, each receiving 7,500 monthly for 3 months. In view of the COVID pandemic, my administration distributed rice countrywide through NDMA. Furthermore, it disbursed $450,000 for rice, oil, sugar, mattresses, and other essential items to support 1,161 Senegalese affected by the Sanyang riot. Honorable members, evaluation and revision of the National Population Policy 2007-2011 is in progress. In addition, the National Population Commission will lead the revision of the Act for the National Population Commission and its Secretariat to further determine the mandate and authority of the Secretariat as an institution. Following the development of a new population policy, the Secretariat will lead the development of an accompanying strategic plan and will establish and train the network of parliamentarians on population and development. We thank UNFPA for their invaluable support. As part of the Civil Service Reform Program 2018-2027, PMO is striving to transform the public service into an efficient, motivated workforce. So far, my government has successfully revised the pay and grading structure to rationalize the civil service remuneration package. Effective from July 2022, we increased salaries by 30%. The National Assembly passed the 2020-2022 Public Service Pension Bill in February of this year, and I assented to it. The new act centralizes the administration of civil service pension under the Personal Management Office PMO. This is designed to yield a more rational pension and gratuity scheme for civil servants. To improve performance, PMO with support from the Commonwealth Secretariat is working on a performance management system to hold all ministries, departments, and agencies, MDAs, accountable annually. The MDAs will have to sign a performance contract with the Office of the President for assessment. The top 10 ministries will receive recognition and incentives on an annual basis. In May of this year, the new Ministry of Public Service, Administrative Reforms, Policy Coordination and Delivery took over responsibilities for the entire civil service, including the supervision of PMO, to achieve my administration's public service reform agenda and vision. Information communication infrastructure. Honorable Speaker, there is a strong desire to digitally transform the economy, improve the national ICT infrastructure, and strengthen our ICT policies and regulatory frameworks. Key among the steps taken to realize these targets are the formulation of the ICT 4D Master Plan in 2020 and the ongoing review of the IC Act 2009. Added to this, the government through MOISI is implementing the project preparatory stage in advance of the 5-year World Bank funded $45 million Western Africa Regional Digital Integration Project. The project will support the rollout of numerous digital development interventions, which include the establishment of a second submarine cable to provide adequate backup for the ACE submarine cable. It also has components on strengthening cybersecurity. The formulation of an e-commerce policy and strategy is another key activity of the project, as government accelerates efforts to support the growth of this important industry. This intervention will lead to the next phase of the digital addressing initiative in the West Coast region. The initiative will facilitate assigning digital addresses to about 80,000 properties by December 2022. To fully utilize the economic potential of our national broadband infrastructure, the administration went into a partnership with the EU through the Belgian Development Agency for the implementation of the Gambia Digitalization Project. The objective is to strengthen the sector policy and regulatory frameworks. develop an integrated infrastructure master plan for effective mobilization of private sector investments, and formulate an e-commerce policy. In a bid to spur in technology, enable research and innovation, government is championing the establishment of innovation and tech hubs in all regions of the country. The purpose is to increase employment and employability opportunities for the youth and women, especially those in rural Gambia. As regards cybersecurity and cybercrime, the sector will table the data protection and the privacy and cybercrime bills for this august body to consider. The quest to transform the sector led to the creation of the two separate ministries of information and of communication and digital economy. Transport, works and infrastructure. Honorable Speaker. In 2021, the transport, works and infrastructure sector registered impressive achievements despite challenges posed by the COVID pandemic and slow economic growth. In the road sector, my administration successfully completed the $82 million China Aid Roads and Bridges project in the URR. Likewise, relying on local resources and funding, the major rural secondary paved roads program on the north and south banks is progressing satisfactorily. In the capital city of Banjul, the government rolled out the Banjul City Rehabilitation Project to reconstruct the city's dilapidated roads, sewage and drains using local funds. Relentless efforts will continue to modernize Banjul. With support of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, and the Islamic Development Bank, the Greater Banjul Area project are moving forward steadily. Equally, the construction of 50 kilometers of urban feeder roads in the Greater Banjul area has commenced. Furthermore, government has finalized the maintenance and reconstruction contracts using the road fund for the proper upkeep of selected roads in the Greater Banjul area and the North Bank and the Central River regions. The estimated cost is $617,296,691.73 buttons. In addition, my administration has rolled out a massive reconstruction program of markets in growth centers where the need is most urgent. Already, the new Soma LRR and Farafenni NBD markets were completed last year and are fully operational. Similarly, constructed at a cost of $112 million and inaugurated earlier this year, the new Basse main market is now a magnificent center of attraction and a busy business hub in URR. Linked to public structures, the Public Building Facilities Management Bill is with this Assembly for consideration. It is a new framework for effective management of government estates, offices, and overseas buildings. Turning attention to the port, the Banjul Port Expansion Project is ongoing, and expansion of the container storage yard is now complete. The Banjul Jetty Extension and Basse Dry Port Development Project are the next areas of focus. Ferry services play a vital role in linking the north and south banks, although ferry crossing remains a challenge. In the year under review, the Ferry Service Authority improved the Banjul-Bara route service and restore the Barajali ferry service. The procurement of a new ferry at a cost of €10 million to augment the Banjul-Bara route service is at an advanced stage. The Gambia Port Authority expects its delivery in 2024. This new ferry will have the capacity to carry 44 cars and 600 passengers. A new ferry route between Banjul and Albreda is under consideration. The route will run from Banjul through Mandinari and Bonto to Albreda. In addition to the parts of the West Coast region, it will serve the southern part of Nyomi and communities along the Hakalang corridor. Mr. Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic continues to pose a significant threat to international aviation. In 2021, the Banjul International Airport staff welcomed and processed about 200,473 passengers. This marked a slight increase of 0.05 compared to 2020. The estimated growth rates are small, and the indication is that the Gambia may reach pre-COVID passenger levels by 2025 at the earliest. On the airport, through the support of Saudi Fund for Development, a new state-of-the-art VVIP launch is under construction ahead of the Organization of Islamic Conference Heads of State and Government Summit, which the Gambia will host. Defense, Honorable Speaker. In line with the security sector reform process, the Ministry of Defense has developed 3 important policy documents, namely the National Security Policy, National Security Strategy, and the first ever National Defense Policy. The drafting of the strategic plan has commenced. Other outdated military regulatory books, which include the Gambia Armed Forces Act 1985 and the Terms and Conditions of Service for Officers and Soldiers 1993, have been redrafted, taking cue from international best practices. Development of the supported regulatory frameworks is also in progress. The Gambia Armed Forces is broadening engagements with civil society to maintain a cordial relationship with the public. In addition to collaborating closely with other security agencies, it provides security, participates in maintaining peace and order, and goes further to support war veterans. Following the recent conflict in Casamance between the MFDC and the Senegalese Armed Forces, the Gambia Armed Forces play a crucial role in diffusing the tension and restoring calm. Its troops continue to conduct routine patrols in the area to maintain peace and security. Besides plans to expand provision of educational and health services, the Gambia Armed Forces intends to construct a military hospital capable of conducting surgical operations. I must mention before concluding that over 500 Gambia Armed Forces personnel benefited from training facilitated by the British Army during the past 5 years, different from other training programs and joint tactical activities. Under the Turkey-Gambia Military Cooperation Agreement, and other 500 personnel of the Gambia Quick Reaction Force recently completed training in Turkey. We are grateful to the British and Turkish government for their massive support. Trade industry, regional integration and employment. Honorable Speaker, in the past 5 years, the Ministry of Trade implemented programs and projects that attracted investments and supported the development of trade and the private sector in the country. We regret, however, the COVID-19 pandemic and the recent Russia-Ukraine war has impacted negatively on food importation around the world. These external shocks have led to price hikes. To mitigate the impact, government has been adopting measures since 2020. For instance, we supported local producers, particularly the flour milling companies, to cushion the cost of production and minimize the price of flour. To promote stability, the ministry is working with importers to increase importation and supply of essential commodities and stabilize commodity prices. A review of the national trade policy is in progress to develop appropriate instruments that would improve the Gambia's competitive edge and strengthen the productive sectors. That aside, as the Gambia prepares to start trading under the AFCFTA framework, we now have a 10-year AFCFTA National Implementation Strategy 2021-2031. To optimize the benefits from the AFCFTA, the Senegambia Bridge will serve as a catalyst to attract strategic investment and contribute to the diversification of the economy. In a related matter, we participate actively in ECOWAS integration programs and have a national regional integration policy and strategy 2021-2025. On investment and export promotion, the Trade Ministry through GAIPA developed a new national export strategy 2021-2025. It outlines key priority areas for the realization of our national export development aspirations. Mr. Speaker, during the last 5 years, GAIPA attracted 39 companies in manufacturing, agriculture, tourism, and fisheries, among other areas of interest. These amounted to a total investment of $154 million and created 2,274 jobs. The Ministry of Trade will launch the Entrepreneurship Development Fund this year to support cottage industries and businesses with a soft revolving loan scheme on a more sustainable basis. The institutional structure of the Entrepreneurship Development Fund Trust Committee has been set up, and GAIPA serves as the secretariat for the fund. My government has reduced the business incorporation fee from $10,000 to $4,000 to assess the market conditions for the establishment of a credit reporting system to improve on the business environment. On employment creation, the sector launched the Gambia Labor Force Survey in 2021 to provide up-to-date statistics on the labor market. As a result, a new National Employment Policy and Action Plan 2022-2026 are available to pursue government's commitment to addressing unemployment issues. During the reporting period, the Techifi program and the Youth Empowerment Project supported over 4,500 Gambians with skills training and provided finance and startup support to more than 1,500 young entrepreneurs. The Yet Mini Loan Scheme, implemented in partnership with the Social Development Fund, provided $11 million of private capital to young entrepreneurs. On the YEP, young entrepreneurs had close to $25 million disbursed to them as small business grants. To strengthen labor administration, the ministry reviewed and updated the Labor Act 2007 and established an employment service center to link job seekers and employers. There is an accompanying 5-year strategic plan to effectively operationalize the employment service center. The legal sector, Honorable Speaker, as the Constitution remains a top priority, my government is determined to oversee the crafting of a new constitution for the Gambia. Therefore, the Ministry of Justice will resume work towards tabling a draft constitution before this August Assembly. As part of its mandate, the ministry will continue leading the review and harmonization of existing legislation with particular focus on laws that suppress freedoms and rights. For now, bills on criminal justice reform and mutual legal assistance are before this Assembly. I hope they will be dealt with eventually. Among other bills tabled before the National Assembly is the Anti-Corruption Bill 2020, which seeks to establish an anti-corruption commission after enactment to uproot corruption. Cabinet recently approved the Intellectual Property Bill 2021 to streamline the administration of intellectual property rights in the Gambia and have a centralized intellectual system. Following the submission of the TRRC report last year, Cabinet approved the relevant government-wide paper in May 2022 for implementation. Mr. Speaker, with 3 years of existence, the NHRC proved to be fully compliant with the Paris Principles. As a result, the Global Alliance of National Human Rights Institutions granted it A status. To the credit of government and the Commission, the African Commission on Human and People's Rights also granted it affiliated status. Thus, it can share submission with them on human rights issues within the country. We will support its attainment of first-class accreditation status. The Ministry is committed to the construction of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights headquarters as part of government's contribution towards hosting the Secretariat. Its purpose is to transform the Gambia into the capital of human rights promotion. On the international front, the Gambia will pursue to the end the case of justice for the Rohingya before the International Court of Justice. It is encouraging that the Netherlands and Canada have joined us to end the genocide of the Rohingya. Mr. Speaker, the role of the courts in providing access to quality justice delivery constitutes the pillars of a stable democracy, peace, and development. As a result, my administration is committed to supporting the judiciary's growth and development, recruitment of judicial experts, particularly qualified Gambians, and maintenance of its independence and impartiality. To achieve this noble goal, the Executive will collaborate with the Chief Justice and the Judicial Commission. We honor them and celebrate their achievements with them. The subsector is aware of the need to expand the implementation of post-transitional justice mechanism, redress victims of rights violation, and scale up advocacy on healing and reconciliation. We will remain supportive of the judiciary as it addresses these issues and evolves to maintain public trust and respect. Fisheries, water resources, and National Assembly matters. Honorable Speaker, the fisheries sector contributes about 12% to GDP and provides direct employment to over 30,000 people. It has an enormous potential to contribute to diversifying the economy and reducing the unemployment rates. The new policy, medium-term strategic document, and plan of action for the sector are ready for validation. Once finalized, the Ministry of Fisheries will work towards amending the Fisheries Act and regulations. With partner support, the sector is expanding use of fish processing and preservation technologies to contribute to the economic viability of small-scale fish smoking enterprises of women. They constitute up to 80% of post-harvest fisheries operators in the sector. In the major operations to combat illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing, the Gambia Navy, police force, and volunteer fishermen recently seized and destroyed over 500 illegal fishing traps and tried 5 culprits before competent district tribunals. It flags the need for sustained vigilance. Mr. Speaker, my government will table 2 agreements before this Honorable Assembly for ratification. There are agreements between the government of the Gambia and the government of Senegal on fisheries and aquaculture, and the government of Ghana on fisheries. The sector will also introduce to this honorable body a bill to provide an up-to-date comprehensive water act for the Gambia and a bill to establish a new National Water Resources Management Authority. Correspondingly, the National Meteorological and Hydrological Services provider and partners are collaborating with the World Meteorological Organization to implement the national framework for climate services and intensify action to address climate risks and related issues. I encourage the private sector and other actors to team up with the government to fully harness the opportunities created and reduce the hazards associated with the climate system. Lands, local government, and religious affairs. Honorable Speaker. As population growth poses challenges to land usage, land resources are under tremendous strain globally. Accordingly, my administration recognizes that prudent management of these precious resources is essential for poverty reduction and national food security. The Ministry of Lands, Regional Government and Religious Affairs must execute these functions effectively and impartially. On programs and projects, the sector is currently implementing 20 workshop projects with a total fund disbursement capacity of $21,231,460. The sub-projects take the form of water supply systems, grading and culvert construction. The second phase accommodates 12 additional wards in URR North and South. Moving on, the Directorate of Governance and Decentralization is set to roll out the Integrated Financial Management Information System, IFMIS, to all the local government councils to improve sound fiscal management. The COVID outbreak delayed the process initially. The project cost estimate is $7,810,200, which the government and UNDP will provide. Honorable members, the sector is reviewing the Local Government Act 2002, the Finance and Audit Act 2004, and the Local Government Service Scheme. The objective is to make them responsive to government's evolving local governance and decentralization policy. In recognition of the role of the village heads, Alkalolu. In their communities, my administration now pays every Alkalo a monthly responsibility allowance of $3,000 with effect from January 2022. Finally, the NGO bill is ready for enactment as the NGO Act 2021. Interior, Honorable Speaker, the Gambia Police Force continues to protect life and property and preserve law and order for peace and stability. To this end, the Gambia Police Force, with the support of local and international partners, has refocused its strategic plan and core values to align them with the national security policy, national security strategy, and the national security sector reform strategy. Related to this, the Gambia Police Force has developed 14 operational instruments, standard operating procedures and guidelines, and a national community policing strategy. To briefly comment on its operations, the Gambia Police Force currently has 25 community policing programs and 175 active community policing structures, supported by community policing volunteers. Together with other security services, I commend them for their effective participation in the last 2 national elections. They promoted impartiality and democratic policing values. To avert attrition and enhance adequate security for the upcoming OIC summit from 2021 to date, the Gambia Police Force recruited 1,200 personnel and conducted 63 training programs for 1,812 police officers in critical areas of policing. On the other hand, the Gambia Immigration Department collaborated with the Geneva Center for Security Sector Governance to amend the current 1965 Immigration Act and align it with international standards. As referenced in their Strategic Plan 2019-2024, this amendment will lead to the enhancement of the Immigration Service Act 2023. The Gambia Immigration Department contributes to the national revenue in several ways. In this respect, the department collected $91,980,370 in 2020, which increased by about 12% in 2021 to $103,362,940. Revenue collection for 2022 is likely to be higher. We commend them for this achievement. The Gambia Fire and Rescue Service works to safeguard life and property. In this light, the Gambia Fire Service received and responded to 1,128 emergency calls in 2021. Of these, 823 were related to fire incidents and 305 were rescue calls. They rescued 228 persons alive, but there were 29 fatalities. This highlights the need for vigilance in our homes and at sea. The Gambia Prison Act of 1953 Amendment Bill 2022 had cabinet approval prior to its submission to the National Assembly. The enactment of the bill is meant to repeal key colonial legal provisions on prison officers and inmates and institute international standards and best practices. The review of the Drug Control Act 2003 for amendment is at an advanced stage. The new bill incorporates international protocols and treaties, and the ministry will table it here for consideration. In the interim, it is necessary to impress upon the anti-drug agency the need for vigilance to free the nation from drug abuse and trafficking. Department for Strategy, Policy and Delivery, Honorable Speaker. The Department for Strategy, Policy and Delivery, DSPD, under the Office of the President, provide policy support to secretaries. It also supports the Cabinet Office. The department coordinates the program for Accelerated Community Development Park, which is a special initiative of the Office of the President. Through this project, government facilitated access to proper infrastructure, safe drinking water, roads, energy, and labor-saving equipment in rural communities. also, the DSPD collaborates with UNDP, the MDAs, and the regional offices away from Banjul and KMC to implement the project. So far, it has provided water systems for 31 communities in the 5 regions. On electricity supply, 10 communities are now connected to the main grid, with an additional 7 communities targeted on the North Bank. More than 10,000 households in the area will benefit from this intervention. The project will gradually spread to other parts of the country. I am pleased to observe that the food security component of the project provided 19 tractors with accessories and 9 post-harvest processing equipment, 38 communities in the country. This is to support rural farmers, especially women. To ensure sustainability of the project assets and boost revenue generation, this initiative will include capacity building on asset management and revenue generation. Private sector participation is being mobilized to stimulate private sector investment in rural infrastructure, particularly renewable energy assets. My administration, through the Department of Strategy, Policy and Delivery, continue to coordinate the United Nations Peace Building Fund activities in the Gambia to boost peace building efforts in the country. We acknowledge with gratitude the UN PABF's contributes to the implementation of the National Development Plan. Closely related to this, the Ministry of Interior and the DSPD, working with civil society organizations, continue to play a key role in developing the first ever infrastructure for peace, 14P, the centerpiece of which will be a National Council for Peace and Social Cohesion. Still on coordination, the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs and the DSPD currently coordinate the development of the UN cooperation framework under the guidance of the UN country team. A joint government UN program coordination group is working to ensure that all assistance for the country occurs with our national priorities. The DSPD is now relocated to the Ministry of Public Service, Administrative Reform, Policy Coordination and Delivery for better results. Concluding remarks, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, honorable members of the National Assembly, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as my address shows, ours is a story of success, despite the major hurdles that slowed down my administration's performance and the country's development over the past 5 years. With resounding success, we have reclaimed our rights and freedoms, restored democracy in the country, and rescued our dignity and honor as a nation. We have gone through the transition phase in peace, registering phenomenal successes in various aspects of development, embracing infrastructure development, energy, education, health, agriculture, and transitional justice, amid other achievements. On the world stage, we have imposed our country's visibility, and our partnerships and relations with the world are growing fruitfully. The commissions and other structures we initiated were relevant, necessary, and functionally useful. Looking ahead, following the remarkable 2021 and 2022 elections, we now have a new cabinet of national character, a new legislature of diverse composition, and a revitalized, strengthened, and respectable Gambian judiciary. Our reformed institutions and evolving civil service provide sufficient grounds for optimism as we begin the march to 2026. Today, the government respects and listens to the voice of the people. Hence, the multiple energized political parties that continue to make their presence felt. We must note, however, that the Gambia has a hopeful, inspired, but needy population. Therefore, the responsibility lies on all of us to fulfill their aspirations. The first cabinet retreat held in June of this year confirms my government resolve to do this and deliver on our promises, because it was not all rosy during the last 5 years. We know that there are loose ends to tie, gaps to fill, and missing links to fix. The retreat focused on selected themes to address the long-standing challenges facing the country, as well as emerging ones. I must observe, however, that we will tackle the thematic areas within the administration's broader and holistic approach to national development. Development will continue to receive due attention. The minority group women, the youth, and people with disability will attract special focus in the process. Mr. Speaker, honorable members of the National Assembly, my government offers the nation a new socio-political order not tied to social preferences, partisan politics, or any form of extremism. This is a national order purely for patriotic service and development. I plead that we embrace it as a construct that calls for uprightness, sincerity, and diligence. The notion is that the honorable members of this assembly have 3 functions to perform. That is representation, legislation, and oversight. Your responsibilities certainly go beyond these 3. The mantle of leadership casts upon you by virtue of your membership of the national legislature, and the fortune of being a family head or belonging to a family and community. Trust social functions and responsibilities upon you to foster peace and cohesion in your communities, consequences, and the nation at large. You have the responsibility to educate your consequences, the opportunity to initiate development projects and programs, and the option to engage government. We are open to dialogue, and I ask that we work together. Aside from being legislators, you have the ambassadorial role of representing the nation at international forums and holding meetings with foreign dignitaries and philanthropists. This creates an opportunities for you to promote national policies and plans and raise funds for national development. The diverse composition of this assembly spells a new era in Gambian politics and a new outlook for the legislature. The people's expectations are high, so you must not allow any party interest to overshadow your tenure and performance. In whatever you do, let the interests of the nation come first. To deliver, it is impressive that you work along bipartisan lines to fulfill the people's aspirations and safeguard the honor of those who choose you to represent them. As I always emphasize, the opportunities are much greater today, and there is no justification for any citizen to anticipate gloom for the country. May Allah grant us a successful legislative session, full of grace, development, and a lot of opportunities and advancement for the citizens and residents of the Gambia within an environment of sustained peace, stability, and security. I thank everyone, especially our development partners, for their support, and I wish this August Assembly fruitful deliberations. I thank you.
ne képp koo xam ne añaanuloo rek doomi Gambien bu baax nga li président bi wax rek sa xol war naa seeda te lii lañ doon séntu su moom te def na ko tamit.
maanaam expectations yoo doon am pour mu adresse yëpp laal na foofu.
laal na foofu yëpp bàyyul fenn ma ne la ñoo xam ne tey seen xol yi dañ bon seen xol yaa ngi seet seen biir kër yi.
ma am pour wax commune projects you mentioned ci biir assembly house bi.
waaw yooyu tamit lu nekk ndànk la xam nga dara xëyul rek sotti affaire bi step by step la. te inshallah dina mottali lépp su kattani yàlla dama fa ne métti bi moom fu nekk la Europe bi sax fu nekk la àdduna bi yëpp la wur waaye dama fa ne ñu ni neen ñun ñoo gën a soxor na man maa moom suma bagage li ma neex laa koy jaayee loolu moo fi nekk di am te loolu defuñ ko kan suñ boppa lañ koo def na lu métti li su ñun la moo jógee te su ñun la moo deelu loolu mooy wax ci.
tur bi.
man maay Fatou Sané di Bakunda ñu gën maa xamee ci Fatou Bouga Baro.
ma bëggoon laa laajte naka nga gisee tey président bi nation address am bi.
kontaan rek kontaan trop ndax li tax ma kontaan si mooy tey firi na Gambien si tey ku nekk da nga tëddee woon tey yëg nga sa boppa comme saay bu nekk dañuy ne président bi du wax waaye yàlla def na tey président bi wax na te li président bi wax ku nekk xam na ne waxi président bi si xol la jógee te si xol la delloo ndax man bi président bi waxee sax man fi ma toog dama jooy because dama ko fiil xam ne président bi dëgg-dëgg dafa am xol si Gambien bi soo ñun nañ try ñun si suñ boppa ñu jàppale ko ñu liggéey réew mi président bi taamam dafay jeex moom mu dem keneen ñëw réew mi nag du jeex fii la yem ñun ñoo moom suñu réew buñ seet si président bi nañ seet si suñ boppa ñu liggéey suñu réew parce que ñun ñoo moom réew mi soo buñ ne président bi la ñoo def naka sudul noonu ba tax na ñun du ñu liggéey réew mi at the end of the day si suñ boppa yi lay këpp de ndax président bi su taamam jeexee incha allah yal na ko fi yàlla teg ba 2026 ñu célébrer taat ko waaye bu jeexee bu yàlla def fu muy yem rek daf fay yem soo ñun Gambien si ñu ñoo war a try ñu jàppale réew mi ñu jàppale suñu réew jàppale suñu boppa ba fuñ bëgg a àggal réew mi yàlla àggale ko fa incha allah.
balaa ma laa bëggoon naa nga laa si security sector bi because gis nañ ne like murder cases si of recent mu ngi bëri torop.
waaw boobu moom boo ma ko laajee dinaa si sawar a tontu ndax reyante bi bari na te ñun xamuñ woon loolu Gambia ñëpp àddina ñëpp dañ ñu nawoon waaye xamuñ ay reyante comme yow sa moromi Gambien di rey moromi Gambien am loolu soo ko amaan da nga ko dee dégg si yeneen xeet wala si yeneen ay nit yoo xamante ne sax duñ waa fii nga ko daan dégg waaye tey su yàlla defee ba tey ñu ni Gambien si neen ñu ni neen di reyante si suñ biir boobu dafa ñaaw boobu rafetut soo man li ma wax rek mooy sécurité yi ñu jóg taka seen digga because Gambia yàlla daf fi def barke ñaan am na fi ba nga xam ne su fi dara amee rek ñëpp dañ ko police yi dañ si dee gaaw a gis seen boppa seen liggéey dafay gaaw soo maa ngi ñaan sécurité bi ñoom it ñu taxaw ñu jàppale waa réew mi xam nga ñu ngi anti crime ñu ngi def seen liggéey ñu ngi pétrole guddi bëccëg suba ngoon waaye ñu gën koo yokka ni mu gën a amee doole ñu gën koo yokka rek mu gën a neex waaw because léegi nit ñëpp ragal nañ soo génnee da ngay ragal soo xel du dal sax because sa njaboot yaa ngi leen bàyyi gannaaw soo génnee si benn dëkk bi da ngay ragal a teel a àgg sa kër because of doo xam nga kenn xamut mun ngaa dox si yoon sa baak nga téye ko amul dara sax ñu attaque la rey la xam nga sa njaboot gi ñàkk soo man daal li may wax mooy sécurité bi nañ ko gën a dooleel président bi na gën a dooleel sécurité bi ndax reyante bi moom mu jeex fi waaw boobu moom soxal na ma torop.
tur bi.
Amadou Mokhtar Diallo.
Amadou ma bëggoon laa laajte rek tey naka nga gisee président bi nation address bu mu def nii tey si National Assembly bi.
non xam nga doomu aadama ci kanam ak ci gannaaw la am na lu bari lu passé mais alhamdulilah ñu ngi dugg ci jamono bi nga xam ne ene bu baax la ene jamono bi mais am na yu nekk ci gannaawam bëgguñu jamono bi neex te jamono bi dafa war a neex te ñun yëpp dañu war a nekk benn ñu ànda ñu ene dëkk bi jàmm soo amee dara ñàkku ko jërë ngeen jëf maa ngi leen di gërëm di leen sant di ñaanal dëkk bi jàmm yàlla na yàlla defal jàmm ci dëkk bi joxe xibaar bu neex ànd ak jamono bu neex daal maa ngi leen di gërëm di leen sant man de sama gis-gis amul benn jafe-jafe kana yu nekk ci gannaawam jafe-jafe yi ñu nekk di indi mais noonu nañu ànd ak jamono rek sàkk ñaan ci doomu aadama yi jërë ngeen jëf.
man maa ngi tudd Alkali Mayoro nekk Council of Elders Jokadu District maa ngi ñëw fii tey ci daje bi waaye alhamdulilah rabbil alamin kontaan rek lañ fi gis ndax boo dégloo président man dégguma anglais sax bu baax waaye président li mu wax ci li nga xam ne moom la liggéey ci juróomi at yi ak li ñu sémbu te àggagut wax dëgg yàlla doy na yaakaar xanaa rek ñun ñëpp ñu gën a takk suñ digg rek te jàppale ko te xam ne kenn nit mënut a yóbbu réew mi ñun ñëpp ñoo mën a jàppalante dañ koy pencoo bañ koo pàccoo su ko defee réew mi dem kanam ñu ko defee ñun ñëpp ñu am li soxla jamono nag neexat na ba nga xamee ni Gambie rek mënut a dem ba ci yeneen réew yi te xam nañ réew yi àdduna si nga xam ne ñooñu ëpp doole jafe-jafe yi fa nekk jafe-jafe yooyu nag dafa wàcc si ba si réewi Gambie fii laal ñu ci boor bu nekk laal mbay mi laal wér-gi-yaram gi laal njàng mi laal bunte yu bëree bare ba nga gis ne temps yi ñu toll ni sax di nga gis ne problème foyal mu ngi nekk problème ci dëkk bi te loolu dafa sonal askan wi trop yaa booy waaw mu ngi transport bi mu ngi métti lool ci askan wi te loolu ay ñenn nag ñooñu ko teg ndeg seen bànneek xol ak seen i bëgg-bëgg poos bu ñu wàññee essence bi ñu yokk paas bu ñu wàññee essence ñu yokk paas loolu nag moom wax dëgg yàlla teguwut ci dëgg teguwut ci yoon dañu war a dimbale askan wi te xam ne askan wi ñoom tamit ci lañ bokk.
la ci am lan nga employé si wàllum dund bi tamit.
waaw wàllum dund bi itam ren moom xam naa ne dund bi moom dana métti lool ndax boo demee ci àll bi da nga gis ne mbayteef bi ni mu daan demee wut ko ndax li ko waral mooy engrais bi ni mu ñëwee ren dafa seer ba nga xamee ni baykat yi mënuñ ko woon a jënd ni ñu ko daan jëndee ba nga xamee ni ku daan bay fukki hectare daanaka ñaar nga bay wala nga bay ñett loolu tax na mbéy mi moom ci wàllu dund bi dana xaw a diis ba ñu ngi ñaan yàlla indil ñu xiwar rek indil ñu oyof su ko defee yombalal président mën ñoo yombalal mbir mi jàppale askan wi.
ci rek naka nga gisee tey président bi nation address am bi tey naka nga ko gisee ak yow lan nga si jàngat.
waaw jërëjëf foog naa ne luñ doon xaar ci moom daanaka matal na ko ndax state of the nation address président daf ñoo wax fan la réew mi toll ak fan la bëgg a jëmee réew mi ci ay sarta ak i programme yoo xam ne teg na ko dégg nañ nag waxtaan bi yaatu woon na nag lool waaye gis nañu tamit yokkute yi nga xam ne nguuram am na ko moo xam ci fànn bu mu nekkal depuis wérgu yaram gi ci education moo xam ci wàllum mbéy mi ak yeneen i bunte yëpp gis nañ ci ay jéego yoo xam ne nguuram def na ko ci moom it ci boppam nangu na ne lépp jaarutoon yoon ndax am nañ ay texe yoo xam ne yi tamit nguur gi jànkonte nañ ko réew mi jànkonte nañ ko ndax boo xoolee bi mbas mi duggee muy Covid-19 dafa tardé woon lu ñu naan economic recovery mooy jéego yi nga xam ne dañ ko tegoon pour naka suñu koom-koom gi mun a ñëw tardement yu bëri am ci ndax feebar bi lu mu àndaloon ñu ne déetawaay Russia Ukraine woo bi tamit ñëw mu indi ay yeneen waaye loolu yëpp terewut moom itam nguuram tooguñu rek lem seeni loxo ñoom itam dañuy indi ay pexe indi ay programme jàppa ci nag di suñuy naataango di international development partners yi ñun ñi tamit yëpp jàppa ci léegi li gën a am solo rek mooy dégg nañ jéego yi nga xam ne yëpp jël na ko léegi dafa des nag ci doomi réew yi parce que neexut ba neexut yi tamit réew mi du mun a dem faaw rek doomi réew yi tamit jóg parce que tey boo déggee président investment bi nga xam ne nguuram def na ko ci est-ce que dëgg doomi réew yi ñu ngi cee njëriñu am déet loolu ab jàngat la boo xam ne ñun ñëpp ñoo war a toog tey soo demee ci wàllum nappa yi ñi nga xam ne ay doxandeem ñoo fa fees tey boo xoolee tamit ci li nga xam ne tamit sax même si suñ even transport yeeg yooyu noonu sax ba si suñu rajo yeeg télé yeeg yooyu noonu yëpp dañooy gis ñi nga xam ne sax ay nekkuñu doomi réew ñoo taxaw ci kanam soo ñun lan lañ war a def ci wàllum jàng gi il faut que ndaw yi tamit jóg ñu jàng parce que réew ab xam-xam moo ko yóbbu réew ndaw yi dañoo jàng métier te gis nañ vocational technical school si nga xam ne yëpp nguur gi dépasse nañ ci ay millions xaalis yoo xam ne kenn xamul nu mu toll waaye bu ci ndaw yi demul jàng yi tamit affaire bi du mun a sotti soo foog nañ ne am nañ yokkute naam sax ba léegi dañuy wax rek président yokkal bagage yi na affaire bi gën a ñëw.
mbiri dunda bi ak li nga xamante ne moo nekk sécurité bi nekk na loo xamante ne recently moom la public bi gën a nekk di jooytu ak yooyu noonu.
waaw xam nga dunda gi fu mu nekk nii ñu ñëpp a ko xam suñu marché seer nañ benn façon ngi seeraay boo xamante ne yow si sa bopp da ngay waaru ci naka la nit ñi di dundee parce que tey koo xamante ne amam demut loolu njaboot wóor ko nga war a joxe añ joxe reer joxe ndéew bu fekkee yaa ngaa fay luwaas nga war a fay ay school yi léegi tey ñu ubbi kenn xamut affaire bi nu mu méttee ci kaw borom njaboot ñun ñëpp a nangu loolu parce que marché boo xam ne tey boo demee ñu ne la lan laa mujjee na jënd sax ataaya 10 dalasi la woon ma dellu ñu ne ma 12 dalasi sukur 12 dalasi laa ko doon jënd ma dem suñ borom bitig bi ne 15 dalasi waaye lii nag ba kañ loolu yi tamit il faut que ñu jóg ñu saafaral ko nag wax dëgg na parce que su dul loolu dinañ jëm ba jamono joo xam ne nit ñi dund bi dafay métti te gis nga nit bu demee ba xiif rek il faut mu jooy te il faut mu jóg mu am lu mu def te ñaareel nañ ko wax rek te dunda mooy bu nit ñi xiifee rek day yëkkati fitna ci réew.
dina yëkkati ay problems because dunda bi su amul il faut nga génnee uti dunda bi noo ko amee.
non fitna la mooy jur par force ñu am fitna so loolu nguur gi nag war nañ cee teel a jóg war nañ cee teel a saafara waaye julay waaye na ngeen xool ci yàlla tamit yërëm askan wi parce que am na yenn yokk yoo xam ne teguñu ko fenn taxe yokku wut et transport cost lu ñoo indee seen bagage yi si port yi yokku wut dara yokku wut ñoom itam dañoo xëy rek teg ñu loo xam ne booy mënuñu ko. xam nga Gambia boo ko xoolee free economy lañ am so loolu moo tax price control loolu doo ko mën a doxal fi nga amee free economy waaye nguur gi nag mun nañoo jàpp ci mbir yi ba nga xam ne dina xaw a oyof tuuti ci ñii di askan bi mooy julay il faut nga jàppale leen ci wàllum taxe di nga jàppale leen yi tamit ci yu ci bëri dem ak a ñëw beeg ba ci am foreign currency bi sax nga make sure ne réew mi am na foreign currency bu doy ñuy mun a di dem jëndi bagage ak yooyu noonu waaye am nga ñun suñu issue mooy réew bi foog ñu commencé ñu ni tamit di manufacture ñun lu nekk dañu koy jéegaan xam nga ne tamaate yeeg supame yeeg yooyu noonu daf day am jamono joo xam ne yëpp Sénégal la moo jógee ñun Gambia du ñoo liggéey dara saabu sax duñ ko liggéey minti sax duñ ko liggéey waaye réew mi nag naka la moo demee yéen it daf may fàttali Gambien yi nga xam ne ñoo nekk diaspora xoolal politique jeex na xam nga lan moo fi des lu français yi day wax ne beaucoup travail encore travailler toujours travailler liggéey rek moom moo fi des booy doomi réew yi tamit foog ñu investir seen réew mais surtout ñi nga xam ne ñoo nekk biti réew ñu seen loxo mot seen gannaaw il faut que ñu dellu si waat fii ci biir réew mi ñu liggéey réew mi ñu invest fii waaye ñun suñu investment yëpp neexut ba neexut bot noonu Gambien si lañ ko bàyyee te ñooñu xamuñu ñu dund ñoo ñoom bokku ñoo ñoom ñu mun a jëm kanam waaye bu dul loolu coobee bari rek waaye affaire bi moom day gën a